Welcome to the STEM Pathways with Rohan Sharma podcast, where we dive into the exciting world of science, technology, engineering, and math. In each episode, we share exciting stories, groundbreaking research, and inspiring interviews with experts and enthusiasts who are pushing the boundaries of innovation. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just curious about how the world works, join us as we explore the endless possibilities of STEM. Let's get started. Today, I'll be interviewing Varun Sendilraj, who is studying biomedical engineering at Georgia Tech. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Rohan?
Doing good. So to get started, I wanted to ask what kind of activities you were involved in high school and what led you to choosing biomedical engineering.
Yeah, that's a great question. I have kind of a weird journey of how I got into biomedical engineering coming into college. So I think around high school, I honestly did not know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to study in college, to be honest. And the thing that actually kind of got me started in this whole space of biomedical engineering was just the fact that in our school, we had to choose like concentrations for our classes or some specific electives that we had to study. So I decided to just choose computer science because I love playing video games and thought it'd be cool to make video games in the future. And also, biotechnology was the other track I chose just because it kind of sounded cool. So I kind of decided to go down that path and start taking classes in that domain. And I was never really interested in the things that were being taught in class, but the thing that actually drew me to biomedical engineering was a specific club that we had in high school called the iGEM Club or iGEM team. And essentially, iGEM is this international competition that focuses on developing innovations in synthetic biology. And they have like many different like divisions in that competition. They have like a high school division, a college division, even a professional level division. So it's a huge competition. Everyone competes. And we just happened to have this club at our school. So I was able to get into this club. And as I kind of got involved with the club, I got more involved in the hardware and software side of the synthetic biology scene. And this whole aspect of actually just building real life devices and solutions from just ideas that are in my head just completely excited me during that time. Like it was just like way more exciting than class, way more exciting than anything I've been doing. So I started becoming passionate about this whole idea of building my own ideas into reality. But the thing that kind of drew me into biomedical engineering after that was just the fact that I just love the idea of being able to help people and give back to the world at the same time. So that's kind of what drove me into choosing biomedical engineering coming into college. But in terms of the second part of your question of what I was involved with, other than that, I was involved with a hydroponics club where me and a couple of friends built like tech solutions for hydroponic. Also involved with research throughout my high school time. Involved a lab at Georgia Tech developing frugal biomedical devices, and also an AI lab at Emory focused on AI-powered healthcare. And I was also involved with robotics for a bit, but I would say more of my focus was kind of in that biomedical domain, to be honest. So yeah,
Yeah. So what made you go at Georgia Tech?
yeah. I think I was kind of born and raised in Georgia, and there's a really interesting thing here in Georgia where anyone who in high school who was deciding to go to school in Georgia, like Georgia Tech or UGA, that maintains a certain GPA throughout high school, they pretty much get their entire tuition covered coming into college. It's called the Zell Miller Scholarship. So that's a really fortunate thing that we have here. And Georgia Tech was also like number one or number two in the nation for biomedical engineering. So just if you kind of think about it logically, going to like a number two or number one school, literally paying like less than $1,000 in costs, like outside of just tuition, because tuition is fully covered. It's kind of like a no-brainer to me. So I decided to go down that path and choose Georgia Tech, but also I was already involved in research labs here at Georgia Tech and Emory. And like at Georgia Tech, they have like this joint program between Emory for biomedical engineering. So it's just like a really good opportunity for me just to kind of continue my research, come to Georgia Tech like with a very low cost for college. So kind of decided to choose Georgia Tech for that reason.
Yeah. So what's your experience like been so far? And are you currently in your junior year?
Yeah, I'm in my junior year. So far, things are kind of going great. There's been a lot of ups and downs because I think that college is a great time for exploring what you want to do with your life. And I've had many different phases of what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go down, and had a lot of phases where I was just super confused on what I may end up doing. But I think just throughout college, I try to just put myself out there, try to be involved in many different areas. Um, and I got involved with like clubs and startups, still involved with research, and also trying to work different internships to kind of understand where I wanted to go. And I think now that I've kind of been in college, explored many different facets, many different clubs and classes, I've kind of found my kind of own niche of where I plan on going down in the future. And that's just kind of this area of AI powered biotech, while also combining the sense of entrepreneurship along that side. Because while you develop these solutions, it's also really important to get these solutions out to people. And I think that's the power of entrepreneurship. So yeah, it's kind of been great kind of figuring that out for these past 3 years.
Yeah. So, what'd you do at startups?
Yeah. I created I guess my start in the startup world kind of began back in high school, kind of going back to the hydroponics club that I was involved with some friends. We were just developed for fun. Just we had this vertical hydroponics system at school, and we are just kind of tinkering with Arduinos and sensors to try to develop this automation system for that hydroponics system. And kind of throughout that process, one of our teachers actually recommended us try to commercialize our work just for the fun of it, just to see what would happen. So that's what we actually decided to do. So we had this whole system where you can control a hydroponic system through your mobile app, and it would be fully automated. And we added some AI components here and there to help track plant growth and monitor that over time. And at first, we tried a B2C approach, try to sell it to consumers. That didn't really work out. But through that process, we actually started getting mentorship from another local hydroponics company, which we actually ended up kind of selling some of our technology to them. Not for a lot, just for like four figures, I guess is for a relative number. But that kind of whole process of building something and selling was just super exciting. So kind of continue that going into college. Right now, I'm in a phase where I'm trying to commercialize some of my research work. Kind of involved with I'm developing an AI-powered platform for diabetic foot ulcers, and the goal is to try to commercialize that and get it out to people. Since we just finished publishing our paper and now we're doing clinical trials on that work. And outside of that, also founded my own healthcare pitch competition called PitchRx, which is the largest healthcare pitch competition in the Southeast. And the whole goal is to really help college students like me get the experience of breaking into the healthcare entrepreneurship world and get their solutions out to people around the world. And we're backed by pretty big institutions like Mayo Clinic, Contrary Capital, 1517 Fund, and more. And hopefully, this competition will really help these students break out of their shells and learn what healthcare entrepreneurship is really about.
Yeah. So, with research at Georgia Tech, you said you're already involved with some labs as a high schooler. What advice would you have for a
Mhm.
student who's going into Georgia Tech and wants to start doing research?
Um, I think it's kind of a process. I think it's a two-step process. The first process is really just figuring out what area you're really interested in getting involved with research. Because research is a very time-intensive activity and requires a lot of critical thought. So you don't want to choose a random research topic you may not be interested in. So really try to take some time to explore different areas, maybe in your major or outside your major, and kind of nail down specific domains that you're interested in researching in. And then from there, just kind of go onto the Georgia Tech website or your own college's website and look through the different faculty doing research and try to find professors that kind of align with your own interests. And from there, it's honestly just a game of reaching out to them and really just showing that you're super interested in learning and want to get involved with research at their lab. And at first, it may take a while for that professor to respond, but if you continuously follow up, or if you're in college, go to their office hours and just try to speak with them, I'm sure that either they'll like let you know other labs you could potentially get involved with if they can't take on a student, or they'll just take you on and try to give you mentorship through that process. And yeah, that's kind of that whole process. But at first, it may be a little daunting and may take some time to find that professor, but once you find that, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, can you dive in a little more specifically about that research you're doing, I guess, finished up on and you're trying to commercialize?
Yeah, for sure. So the work I'm doing at Emory Lab is about developing this full end-to-end platform for diabetic foot ulcer analysis. And all of this is just done with a single image taken on a mobile phone. So for just a little bit of background, diabetic foot ulcers is this very severe complication of diabetes that actually occurs just because of loss of blood flow to the legs and many other different factors that just kind of comes along with having diabetes. But because of that, having diabetic foot ulcers, it causes almost 50% of people to get their legs amputated. And of those, about 20% pass away. So it's a really severe complication and it's really expensive as well. I'm pretty sure a statistic one statistic about this is that it's more expensive than all the cancers combined. So it's super expensive, super time consuming, and really deadly. So my work at Emory was to kind of help develop this solution that's one, non-invasive and super inexpensive for rural areas around the world to use to help manage this process of diabetic foot ulcers. So what we decided to do is kind of use a device that everyone has access to, which is a mobile phone with a camera. And we developed a sequence of AI algorithms to actually go about that entire analysis process from detecting where the wounds are, segmenting the wounds, classifying what type of wound it is, and then also adding some sort of explainability features to better understand the wound, like the features like color and texture, and also like doing like 3D wound recreation and depth analysis. So all of these information is can be collected with a single image, and from there, doctors are better able to manage patients, get early signs of if this patient were to get infected, so that it can take the right precautions to actually take care of that diabetic foot ulcer. So we worked on this research for about 2 years, just published it in a journal, and now we're working with like about 5 hospitals right now to kind of do a little bit of beta testing and validate that our platform works outside of just like a research setting, so that we can actually get it out to consumers so they can actually use to help manage these diabetic foot ulcers a lot better.
So how does the commercialization process work for this?
Yeah, I think it's a commercialization in the healthcare world is a lot harder than just creating like another social media startup, for example. Um, it's a lot of the major reason why it's more difficult is that you have a lot of regulations in place that prevent you from that make it harder to get your product out to actual consumers or clinicians. And the major reason for this is just because you're dealing with real people, and if your models or your device were to be inaccurate, it could cause someone to pass away or die, which is just a really bad. So you have to kind of manage this entire process really effectively. So there's a lot of different steps that are kind of involved. One is publishing a paper and kind of doing studies in more of a patient-based setting, and that's what we're kind of doing right now. And then from there, you have to kind of work with your country's like safety agencies and regulations. So, for example, it would be like the FDA here in America, and they'll have their own kind of processes that you have to kind of follow and submit approval for. And if you're able to pass those tests, you get FDA approved, which allows you to kind of get even closer to releasing your product to the customers and clinicians. There's a few other steps to that process, but the main idea is you just have to kind of go through these regulatory hurdles before you can actually get this product out to consumers. But if you're trying to take a more venture-backed approach to this, meaning you raise money for your startup and from there try to make your startup uh, to take money from investors and make it a large company. You can go about it that way, or you can bootstrap this startup, meaning you just use your own resources or just use non-dilutive grants, meaning they don't take equity in the company to help raise this company from the ground up. Right now, we're not sure about the approach we're going to take, but we haven't really taken any funding right now for this approach. But hopefully in the future, maybe we'll take funding and try to see where it takes us from there.
Yeah. So at this competition that you started, what are some of the coolest startups that you've gotten to see?
Yeah. There's a lot of cool startups in many different domains. There are drug discovery and drug delivery startups who focus on developing novel medicines for many different diseases. There was another company that focused on patient recruitment and diversity in clinical trials, which is another major issue. And they try to use more of an AI-based approach to kind of go about that entire process. There were also other companies working on like AI medical scribes for medical coding and things along the lines of that on more of a technical side of clinical trials and medicine. And there's also like hardware-based startups. Like I think one was specifically developing like me a medical hand almost for Parkinson's disease is the best way to put it. But there's many different solutions around that space of both AI, um, hardware, and like more on the wet lab side. But there's a lot of diversity, a lot of cool startups, and a lot of them have actually kind of went full time on their startups, which is super cool.
So when did you start this again?
I started this competition about my second year of college. So about the end of my second year. After I kind of went through that whole process of trying to figure out how to commercialize my own Emory research, I just kind of realized how difficult it was for students to break into this space. So because of that, around the end of second year, I decided to start this competition to really help. Um, a lot of these students break into the healthcare entrepreneurship space themselves.
Yeah. So, how many participants do you have in the competition?
Yeah, so we had about 260 student entrepreneurs submit to our competition. Then we accepted about 30 of them to move on to our semifinals round. And then finally, we had our finals round in Mayo Clinic's Innovation Campus. So we selected 9 teams to actually fly out there and present in front of a bunch of investors, judges, and clinicians from both the Mayo Clinic side and other hospitals around that area.
And where are most of these competitors coming from?
We had about 15 students from 15 different universities participate. We had students from Harvard Business School, John Hopkins, Vanderbilt University, Georgia Tech, and Emory. Even from schools out west like Stanford and Caltech. So it was kind of all around the nation, to be honest. Um, I think we did a good job of marketing the competition around the nation, and a lot of students realized this. They wanted to break into the healthcare entrepreneurship scene themselves, so I guess they decided to apply.
Yeah. And were you the main one leading all this, or were you part of like a big team?
Yeah, so I was the one who founded and tried to lead this entire project. We were also kind of working side by side with another organization called Startup Exchange, which helped provide some of the early resources for us to kind of get this competition off the ground. But we had about like a core team of like 6 members working on this, and we had about 20 other volunteers who decided to help out throughout this entire process.
Yeah. And where do you, I guess it hasn't even been that long since the end of your second year. It's kind of the little over the
Yeah.
middle of your junior year right now, and it's already grown this much. Where do you see it going?
Um, I think the way I envision this is to be kind of the platform that allows students to go from 0 to 1 in their healthcare entrepreneurship journey. Maybe they have an idea or just a prototype. And if they want to actually take it out and bring it out to the real world, I want this competition to be that platform that allows students to do this anywhere around the United States. And maybe hopefully we can get it out to other parts of the world. But right now, main focus is the US.
Yeah. So, for my last question, I want to ask
Mhm.
if you have one piece of advice for someone who's still in high school wanting to follow a similar path as you.
Yeah, I think the biggest advice I like to give people is try to genuinely follow your own interests. I think that if I was trying to follow a set path that was created by some of my own friends or like just people around the world, I don't think I would get as far and be as excited throughout my own journey as I did. I think the biggest thing is try to figure out what you're genuinely interested in and want to learn about, and just take a deliberate approach to actually go about learning about that. Maybe that's through research, maybe that's through clubs, organizations, things along the lines of that. And try to be very deliberate with that approach. And as you kind of go about that approach of just following your own curiosity, I'm sure you'll reach a point where you're either successful or have found something that you're really excited to work on.
Yeah. All right then. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for your time.